Welcome to Running Hot, Action Network's motorsports betting podcast. I'm your host, Nick Giffen, predictive analyst here at Action Network. And joining me for another season of NASCAR betting, my co-host, Stephen Young of Roto Grinders, better known as Stevie TPFL. And this week, we're previewing the 2026 NASCAR Cup Series season here on Running Hot. All right, so we are set for another season, 2026. Before we recap last year's closing race, Stevie, how are you doing? Are you ready for a new season? Talk about all the NASCAR content you'll have going on this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this year is going to be exciting. Obviously, the biggest change to NASCAR is the championship format. We got the chase back, where it's not like winning in anymore. I think it's kind of a good mix. I think that they made wins matter a lot. So I love that. And I love the fact that you got to be consistent all season and you got to be consistent the last 10 races to win championships. So I think that's the biggest changes, but overall, I'm doing great, man. Feel refreshed coming into the season, refreshed. You know, you and I were talking pre-show where we've really kind of been working on NASCAR really hard over the last few weeks, preparing for the season. But yeah, I'm super excited. The 24 was like a good intro into the season, even though it was like under caution for 6 hours, but it got me back at the track and made me excited to be back at the track. So I'm really looking forward to the Clash on Wednesday, and then Daytona here in like less than 2 weeks. It's crazy that it's back, and we're almost back with cars on track.
Yeah, Stevie and I are recording this just before cars are supposed to be on track for the Clash. So maybe by the time you hear this, cars are already be on track for the Clash, or maybe it'll get postponed for more weather. Who knows? That remains to be seen. Real quick, Stevie, what do you have going on over at Roto Grinders this year?
Oh yeah, we got a ton of stuff. The NASCAR package is back for this season. We got projections, rankings, practice data from you and I. So just overall, I mean, very similar to years past with a few changes on the back end stuff. Like what people will see on the front end is not really necessarily too much different, but some back end stuff, some more data, that kind of stuff driven into projections and practice stuff. Just always kind of evolving my practice model because, you know, you and I talk about this all the time, even on this show. I think practice is one of the biggest things that we get each and every week when it comes to NASCAR. So just kind of trying to keep evolving my practice model to make my projections better. And yeah, just some back end stuff is changing. But overall, I mean, same content I've been doing. I think this is year 10 for me with Roto Grinders doing NASCAR content. So just, yeah, excited for the season to get rolling here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I remember, NASCAR DFS started back in 2015 on DraftKings, and you and I attacked that right away. So we're on year 12 now, at least in terms of since the DFS angle of this all started. Now we've got the betting angle as well over the last handful of years. So very exciting times to be a NASCAR fan. I know you've been working hard in the offseason. I have as well. I have really evolved my flags metric, and I have flags data for every driver, every race, all the way back to 2005. I've been creating a Bayesian flags number to kind of make sure every driver has a current updated flags number that is relevant in both a shorter and longer time frame. Also doing that for different track types and track specifics. So all sorts of flag stuff going on here with the end goal, of course, of making predictions. We'll have the practice flags model at Roto Grinders, and I'll also be dropping it in Action Pro paywalled articles as well. So you can find it at Roto Grinders and at Action Network, the practice flags that I do. So for those of you who want to use it for betting instead of DFS, you can also use it for betting. So let's talk about the end of last year, Stevie. To close out the race, we had the championship race at Phoenix. Kyle Larson was the highest finishing driver of the championship four at Phoenix, therefore winning the title. He did it by relying on pit strategy, coming out with 2 tires instead of 4 tires, which Denny Hamlin took, thanks to a late race restart after a late race caution. Denny Hamlin dominated the whole race at Phoenix, but unfortunately for him, did not win his first NASCAR Cup Series championship. That goes to Kyle Larson, who finished 3rd in the race. Hamlin ultimately finished 6th after an absolutely dominant performance, one of the most dominating performances we'd seen all year in a single race. Chase Briscoe finishes 3rd in the championship by finishing 18th in the race, and William Byron rounded out the championship 4 after encountering issues to finish 33rd. in the race. So, of course, the big talk was that finishing controversy, Stevie, the late caution, which forced some pit strategy, maybe a kind of a potentially bad call from Hamlin's pit crew chief, Chris Gabehart, and then, of course, Hamlin not winning it after an absolutely dominant performance. I think a lot of the fans, the sentimental favorite was Hamlin, and to have it taken away certainly stung. What were your thoughts on that ending to the season there?
Yeah, I mean he dominated the race. No shocker to anybody that Ryan Blaney won the race. But Ryan Blaney was not even by far closest to the best car. I mean, Denny, I don't remember exactly, but I think it was like 90 plus fastest laps in that race,
Yep.
and led over 200 laps, and like on every metric was the fastest car by a large margin. And a late race caution kind of sealed him in. The strategy that they played, who knows? I mean, do you take two? Do you take four? Do you stay out? It's a really tough game for crew chiefs in that situation, and they put him on the aggressive, taking four, and it just wasn't enough time for him to get to Larson. But yeah, I mean, kudos to Kyle Larson and what they did. He wasn't the best car, but he kept himself in the position to have a chance to win the championship under the format that we had last season, and he won. So kudos to him. But yeah, I was really pulling for Denny. And the fact that I always love when the best car wins, and I think Denny had the best car to win the championship. So I was really pulling for him, but it wasn't his day. It certainly seemed like it was going to be his day, but it wasn't his day. So I think we'll be talking about Denny again a lot this season. I think he'll be right up there, competing for another championship in this format. He's such a consistent driver, and finishes so well. So I don't think that was his last chance, but I do think when we look at everything, and especially when we look at what kind of car he had, that was probably his best chance to win championship last year. That car was so good. He was so good. He was on, and it just didn't work out. But I think that we'll talk about him more. But yeah, it was probably his best chance he's ever had to win a championship.
Yeah, I would agree with that. If we look at the speed flags from that race, he was 88.6%, meaning on any given green flag lap, if you average his speed relative to the fastest speed on any given green flag lap, he was 88.6% of the fastest lap on any given lap. Like you mentioned, a ton of fastest laps himself. So that was 100th percentile for a lot of those laps. Next closest was Ryan Blaney, who did win the race, but he was more than 2% back, which is quite a good bit in NASCAR to be 2% back. William Byron was third, Kyle Larson fourth, and Chase Briscoe fifth. So that top five encapsulates our four championship contenders plus the race winner, Ryan Blaney. And again, these are only healthy car laps. So, right. So after William Byron's incident, anything, any unhealthy laps like that are removed from consideration. We don't want to, that to really factor into William Byron's true speed. So that's one benefit of my flags metric there. So yeah, it was very clear Denny Hamlin was the dominant car in that championship race. But we got to move on to 2026. We're going to talk about everything that has changed. And Stevie, we're going to start with the first change, and that is Chevrolet going to the new body. Of course, they're changing the body that they've been using for, I think it's been the past 3 years. So they unveiled a new body style for the ZL1. That's going to replace the one they've been using since 2022. So yeah, 22, 23, 24, and actually 25. So 4 straight years that they've been using. And it's based on the Camaro ZL1. So that is the first change. What kind of impact do you think that'll have?
Yeah, I think a lot of us were shocked that Chevy didn't roll out a new body style last season, with Ford and Toyota kind of rolling out, upgrades. I think it's just going to be better for Chevy, and you're going to hear that in some of my picks later. But you're giving a team, an organization that was already really fast, like Hendrick, a new body that is specifically designed for this next gen car. So I think that we're going to see really good speed out of Chevy. It just might be a slow start. We might have to see a little bit of bumps. We don't know what Daytona is going to look like with this new body. How are they going to link up, and how is the nose going to push, that kind of stuff that we always talk about with new bodies. But I think once we get to the 1.5s, we're going to see the Chevy body be a lot more competitive to Toyota and Ford, but basically Penske than it was last season. So I think it's going to be a huge upgrade this year for Chevy. I just think it might be a slow start.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's interesting because we also saw Toyota and Ford roll out new bodies a few years ago, and a couple things happened. Ford's really dominated super speedway qualifying, so that was one thing that became noticeable. And in the first year for Toyota, they really struggled on road courses. You remember they were just awful that year in the very first year. They got it together later in the year and really in the second year. But like you said, there could be some struggles. We don't know if Chevy's going to have this body struggle in a certain spot or just be an absolute smash in a certain spots. That creates some uncertainty, which means we're really going to need to kind of update what we think of Chevy relatively quickly, right? If we see them struggle at a track, like all the Chevys struggle at a certain track, that's going to be a big red flag for the next few races at that track type. And then if we see them really crush it, that's also going to be a big green flag for them. So just some interesting things there. We also have, of course, new driver and team combinations. Actually, this was maybe one of the lowest amounts of offseason movement we've ever had. Really, the only changes, Justin Haley leaving the number 7 Spire car, being replaced by Daniel Suarez. And in place of Daniel Suarez, who was in that Trackhouse number 99, it becomes Connor Zilich in that Trackhouse car. It's being renumbered to number 88. And SVG, he gets renumbered to number 97, still at Trackhouse. So just that little dynamic there. What do you make of those 3 drivers, Stevie?
I mean, Trackhouse really kind of built what they are going for based off of win and get in my opinion. And I think that this new format for the chase probably hurts Trackhouse more than it hurts any other team. Because I mean, Connor Zilich is a generational talent from what we've seen so far. It's very early to still say and see what he's going to do, but SVG got better on the ovals last year, but really just kind of was a dominant on the road courses. So um, this new format definitely affects them, I think, the most. Daniel Suarez going to Spire, I think it'd be very comparable to what he kind of had with Trackhouse last year. So I don't know how much will really change for Daniel Suarez, but I think the biggest thing here is like getting renumbered is not a huge deal for me. Zilich getting in the cup car, he needed to. I mean, he was so dominant in the Xfinity series last season and great equipment that we need to see what he has. But I mean, can he win this year? Who knows? It will definitely be interesting to see. We saw Ty Gibbs kind of dominate in top tier equipment and has had kind of a slow start to his cup career. So I think realistically, Suarez getting moved was definitely something that, you know, we saw coming for a couple seasons. And I think we're going to see a lot of moves next year. This year is just kind of tame, but next year is going to be, it's going to be wild. At 2027 is going to be, we're going to come on this show next year and we're going to be like, oh man, we got like 10, 12 driver changes to talk about. And there's going to be some big ones in my opinion.
Oh yeah, this off season, this coming one from between 2026 to 2027, I think is going to be absolutely crazy, especially with so much stability in the sport here. A lot of contracts are going to be running out. We may have a retirement or two, who knows? But it's going to be wild. I think the interesting thing for me here is Daniel Suarez. If we look at my team rankings, which is part of this flag stuff that I've been doing, I found a way to decompose driver effects from car effects. Trackhouse on ovals ranks as the 6th best team. It's JGR number 1, Hendrick Motorsports number 2, Penske number 3, of course. I think it was as we all expect. 4th was RFK, 5th was 2311, and then 6th was Trackhouse on ovals last year. Now, Daniel Suarez goes from a team that was around +7, +8% relative to median to a team that is slightly below median. Spire actually gets the second team that was slightly below average in terms of speed. So he gets a 7-8% downgrade in terms of like, quantile flag. So just relative to the field, how much percentile does he move down? And that's just on his equipment. So certainly we have to downgrade Daniel Suarez here as he goes to Spire. So that's something we'll need to keep in mind as well. But yeah, I think those are the main things. The other thing we have is a couple of changes for Haas Factory Team and Rick Ware Racing. They both move over to Chevy from the Ford camp. So they're both in Chevys now, and Haas Factory Team has a Hendrick Motorsports Alliance. Rick Ware Racing will have an RCR Alliance. Anything major there from those?
I mean, it kind of goes back to the conversation that we were talking about with the body. Like, is Chevy body going to help these teams? The cars are so similar nowadays as far as like setups and engines and all that stuff. So, if anything, I think maybe a slight bump to Cole Custer, because he gets that alliance with HMS, and I think that's a huge alliance. So, even if he gets to sit in like some meetings and stuff and like hear what these guys are doing, like it's just a huge upgrade in that aspect more than anything else. But I mean, if you're going to align yourself with anybody in NASCAR, I think both of us will agree like JGR, Hendrick, and Penske would be the three teams that, like, if I could sit on any of those meetings, I'd sit on any of those three meetings. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with that. I think Cole Custer does get a bump. He was 34th in average race flags last year in both of the different versions of flags that I use. He was 34th. So out of 36 chartered cars, I'm ignoring the one-offs, but or
Yeah.
the handful of open cars as we call that. But Cole Custer probably gets a bump into the upper 30s, something like that. Potentially, we'll have to see. It remains to be seen what kind of bump they get there. Another change, we'll quickly go through this one, is a change to the aero package. Technical changes there. We're going to 750 horsepower instead of 670 horsepower, and this now applies to all tracks under 1.5 miles in length. Previously, it was all tracks under, I believe, a mile in length, with the exception of like Bristol or something. So now the tracks that were formerly in the intermediate package that become this shorter track or road course package is Bristol, Darlington, Dover, Nashville, and New Hampshire, and Gateway, along with all the previous short tracks and road courses, as we mentioned, that continue in this road course package, which is now increased to 750 horsepower. What do you think of that?
Yes. Finally. I mean, like, uh, the biggest one that stands out to me is Darlington. Like, it's a driver's track, and you and I talk about it all the time. And if you give them a little bit more horsepower, potentially creates a little bit more tire wear, potentially creates a little bit more fall off. It puts it back in the driver's hands a little bit more. And obviously, they did some testing on this, and they say 80 horsepower is not going to cost the teams too much more money, and it's going to make the races more competitive. I'm all for it. If we're going to get it back in the driver's hands a little bit. I mean, we all can sit here and probably agree that like the road courses and the short tracks have not been the most entertaining with the next gen car. And I like that they're finally trying to do something about it. I mean, Kevin Harvick has been saying this on his podcast for years. This is what needs to happen. He wanted a little bit more horsepower, but I think this is a good starting point. Like, is this going to work? I mean, time will tell, but is this going to make SVG even more dominant on the road courses? Who knows? But I think Bristol's a huge one. Darlington's a huge one. New Hampshire, Gateway, these types of tracks getting moved into this package and potentially putting it in the driver's hands more, I think just, makes it easier for us to kind of predict, and it makes it more entertaining for the fans on how this racing is going to be.
Yeah, I agree with that. Obviously we'd like even more horsepower, but I think the big thing is passing. If you're faster, we want to be able to see the faster car pass, because that has
Yeah.
often been a difficult challenge at some of these shorter, in smaller intermediate tracks. So I think that's going to be a big help. Also, we've seen NASCAR and Goodyear get really aggressive with the tires at some of these shorter tracks, going to these really soft tires. So I think these are some good improving changes, and we'll see. The verdict could still be out. Maybe it's not enough, but hopefully it is an improvement. Finally, the big change that we alluded to, the championship format. The chase is back. That is the format we introduced after Matt Kenseth dominated the championship by winning only one race way back in 2002. And then Kurt Busch ended up winning the first chase format back when 10 drivers made it. Now it's going to be the top 16 drivers in points. No more winning in. But to not devalue a win, NASCAR has made the points for a win increase from 40 to 55 points. That is a massive increase because 40 was already a jump up from second place. So now it's a huge deal to go from second to first place. And so, that's NASCAR's way of making wins worth a lot more. Also, and fans have said that they want wins to be worth something. They want drivers to go for the win. So it's still an incentive there. Also, no more playoff points for stages or for race wins. Instead, playoff points will be awarded by your regular season standings. So the regular season winner will start with 100 playoff points, meaning they'll start with 2,100 points. Second place in the regular season will be 2075. Third place will be 2065. And then it goes down by 5 from there, all the way down to 16th place in the regular season, which gets 0 playoff points. They'll be at 2,000 points. And the fastest lap bonus now can only be earned before going to the garage. So if you have a crash or an incident, you go to the garage, no more being able to go to the garage and like put on a qualifying setup. Stevie, really quick, I want your thoughts on, did you prefer the chase? Did you prefer maybe a 3-3-4? Did you prefer season-long points? What did you think?
Well, I did not like season-long points. I think this is a good compromise. The chase is, I think, a good compromise. Top 16 drivers. The only thing that I don't love is like stage wins don't really matter anymore. So we're not going to get as aggressive racing for stage wins at certain racetracks anymore. And that's just one thing that I wish we would have seen. Like now they're just stage cautions to the group to field back up. That's all there are. They've just kind of taken away what like stage points and wins matter. So like that's the one thing that I don't love. I like the chase. I always like the chase. Matt Kenseth's like that year that you're talking about. He didn't mess up. And if you're going to be consistent for 10 straight races and you're going to finish inside the top 5, top 10, you don't need to win, in my opinion. You can win a championship by being consistent, letting other people make mistakes. So like the win, I saw people like, oh, why isn't a win like 75 points? Like, let's be realistic for a second. Like, we want wins to matter, but we don't want them to be double the points of finishing second. Like, That's a little crazy. So I like the 55-point mark for that. I like the fastest lap before going to the garage. We saw last year multiple times that teams just basically came out and tried to run fastest laps by laying back and like getting away from everybody. So I love that change. Overall, I like a lot of the changes this year. I'm really happy with a lot of the directions that NASCAR is going. I think they're listening to teams and drivers, and I think that we're just going to keep seeing them evolve. Like, I don't think this chase thing is going to be what we use from 5 years from now. I think they're just going to keep evolving how this all works, how it makes it entertaining for the fans, but also making it where it matters for drivers and teams. Like I said, the only thing that I don't love is the stage. Wish we could have done something with stage points, stage wins. Give them a point, give them 2 points. Make stage wins matter, because now to me, stages are just cautions to make like competition cautions, basically, instead of actual like stages. I mean, they're not stages anymore. They're just competition cautions twice in the middle of a race.
Yeah, I mean, we still get the stage points 10 through 1, but that's not as much of an incentive as grabbing a playoff point for a win.
Yeah, I want that playoff point.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the whole reason stages were introduced was twofold. One, because the old phantom debris caution, you could get away with that, get rid of those, so we can get more commercials in there for TV. But two, I remember on SiriusXM NASCAR radio, it was nonstop calls about how boring the racing was because drivers were just riding around in the middle of the race. And so the stages were introduced to incentivize racing throughout the race, and it did that. And I actually think it did a great job of that. We've seen the percentage of caution laps go up, and not just from adding fake cautions, but also from competitive racing going up throughout that period. So I think it's good. I do want to bring that playoff stage point back as well. So we've talked a lot about the season preview. Now it is time to give our season-long bets. These are going to be season-long bets only. We're not going to be giving bets for the Clash because, like I said, by the time you hear this, the Clash may have already started, or at least cars will have already been on track. We're not going to do bets for the Daytona 500. That'll be on our next week show. So this is just season-long bets. As always, we're going to drive through the season, in this case, stage by stage. We'll give a pick each in stage 1. Then we'll give another pick in stage 2, maybe with a little bit longer odds. Finally, stage 3, instead of a victory lane bet, we're going to give our championship picks. Now, this may be not good odds on the bet, but we still just want to give our championship picks. So it's time to throw the green flag on the 2026 NASCAR Cup Series season preview and fire off for stage 1. All right, first pick of the 2026 season goes to you, Stevie. What do you have in stage 1?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just betting this again. I'm just going to keep betting until it happens at this point. But I'm going Ty Gibbs over a half a win. So basically, Ty Gibbs to win a race this season. It's minus 105 here in Florida. There's a couple books out there that have this at plus odds. You could definitely take advantage of if you're able to shop it around. Most books now are around the minus 105, minus 110 kind of line. Ty Gibbs is a very good race car driver, and I think that he's going to have a lot of pressure this season to win a race. And I think if we look at the schedule, we're getting rid of the Roval, we're adding another oval. I think that's just another benefit for a JGR car. We saw him start really slow last year and then kind of pick it up in the middle of the season and kind of fall off at the end of the season with some inconsistencies. He's just going to keep getting better. This is the year that I think that if he doesn't win, there's going to be conversations of should he be in that car. So I think the focus for this team, for Ty Gibbs, for JGR in general, is to make sure that this car gets into victory lane. Week to week, I bet it so much that I'm just going to say, all right, I'm betting it. And there'll be weeks that I probably bet him to win either way, but I'm going to bet it here at the beginning of the season, take the over half a win at minus 105 and try to get this where Ty Gibbs is winning a race this year. There's too many racetracks that he improved a lot on last year, and I think that more horsepower and stuff might help him on those tracks too. So I got Ty Gibbs over half a win, minus 105 for stage one this year.
Yeah, I mean, you talked about the conversations of should he be in that car if he doesn't win this year. Well, I mean, if he wasn't, related to the team owner, I think there already would have been those conversations. We saw Daniel Suarez only got 2 years in the car. Eric Jones only got 3 years in a Joe Gibbs racing car and actually had a win at Darlington, a real track as well. Actually, 2 wins, one at Daytona as well for JGR. So, this is definitely one of those things where if the Gibbs name wasn't there, maybe there already would have been conversations. But to Ty Gibbs' benefit, last year in flags, he finished 11th in flags. If you look at the driver that finished 10th, Bubba Wallace had a race win. If you look at the driver that finished 9th, Joey Logano, race wins. Chase Briscoe, 8th, race wins. If we go behind Ty Gibbs, 15th, Austin Cindric had a race win. 18th, 17th, Ross Chastain had a race win. And I'm talking about, at least on Ross's case, on a normal oval, right? So Josh Berry, 16th, had a race win. So there's hope here for Ty Gibbs because he's in that tier where a lot of times you can grab a race win, but there may be a chance you don't. But I think at minus 105 odds, that's good enough for me. So Stevie's first pick, Ty Gibbs over half a win on the 2026 NASCAR Cup Series season. For me, going a little chalky, and I'm going to take Ross Chastain to have under, so less than 2 wins, under 1.5 wins. You can find that minus 175 at Caesars, minus 180 at DraftKings or Bet365. I just mentioned it. Ross Chastain last year overall finished 17th in flags, speed flags, and 18th in quantile flags. That's right around mid-pack. And he only won 1 race. The year before, he only won 1 race. So that means he has just 2 wins in his last 72 starts. We have a 36 race season. That's 1 win, essentially, average over the last 2 seasons. And like I said, he's won 1 race each of the last 2 years. Aside from that Coca-Cola 600 win, he only had 1 other top 3 finish, and that was at another 1.5 miles at Texas Motor Speedway. So, it really feels like Ross's chances of grabbing win have been a little bit clamped. Now, he may get a benefit from the Chevy, but there could be struggles early on, as we talked about. And we don't know where Chevy's going to hit it. Maybe they hit it at the road courses, which only helps his teammates Connor Zilch and SVG even more. Maybe some of the attention goes off Ross with, a driver like SVG who could win multiple road courses and sneak into the playoffs, and a driver like Connor Zilch who's an all-world talent. So that could be a little bit of a detrimental factor. And even if we look at the non-drafting ovals, so if I'm removing super speedways and road courses, Ross was still only 17th at just like what we would call traditional ovals, 24 races at traditional ovals. So I think it's going to be tough sledding for him to get to 2+ wins this year. So give me under 1.5 at minus 175. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, if we look at the data for Ross Chastain and we just put our feeling aside for Ross Chastain, because I think both of us really like Ross Chastain as a driver. We like how aggressive he is. But at the end of the day, he's not winning a lot right now. I mean, could there potentially be a bump with the Chevy body? Who knows? Is the bump going to be to Trackhouse before it's to HMS? I mean, I think we all know that. So, or even RCR before Trackhouse. So, I don't hate this one. I mean, obviously, there's some really good racetracks for Ross Chastain that he performs really well at. But if we look at the data, I think the data definitely suggests under 2 wins for Ross as a plus EV bet. Maybe this is a conversation we have where if he gets a win, then you're betting him to win a race a couple times this year to just kind of offset this a little bit on his tracks that he's really good at. But I think, again, looking at the data, this seems like a plus EV bet early in the year.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, okay, well, now that I've made this bet, I need to be really picky about when I do bet Ross to win because
Yep.
I'm, digging into that value. I'm taking on the under 1.5 wins, but there's still a chance he wins some races. So just one of those things to keep in mind. I'm going to be a little bit picky this year, I think, with my Ross Chastain outright bets. So before we move on to stage 2, Stevie, you and I have been waiting for our beloved cross sport prop between the Super Bowl and Daytona 500. Haven't seen one yet out there. But while we wait, and for you all listeners out there, while we wait, make sure you don't miss out on an instant pick alert for this cross sport prop if we get one by getting Action Pro. In honor of Super Bowl 60, we're giving you $60 off a year of Action Pro. This offer expires right after the Super Bowl, but with the Daytona 500 around the corner, you'll want to get this deal now before it's gone so you can get instant pick alerts for the Super Bowl, Daytona 500, and all of March Madness, which is coming in just a month's time. With Action Pro, you get real-time alerts when Stevie or I or any of the other action experts like Sean Kerner, Chris Raybon, or Stuckey, and more release a pick. You don't have to wait 30 minutes when the line might have moved already. You get all that plus features like our Pro Signals, which include big money or sharp action, trends and systems, and of course, access to our pro player prop projections powered by Sean Kerner for NFL and myself for NCAA hoops and more. That's $60 off for Super Bowl 60. Head to actionnetwork.com/pro right now to take advantage before this offer expires. All right, stage 1 is complete, Stevie. We're going to throw the green flag on stage 2, and you're going to a manufacturer bet here that we alluded to a little bit earlier.
Yeah, I'm gonna bet Chevy to win the championship this year. It's plus 115. I bet 2 units on this. This is my favorite preseason bet by a large margin. And I shopped it around. I got it a little bit better number a month or so ago, but we don't record the show until now. So, but looking at this, looking at Chevy, I think the testing games for HMS are going to be off, and we're going to see them run consistent all summer. It's very well known that Hendrick will test stuff during the summer, but if we look at the last few years, the 3 of the most consistent drivers, point standings wise, have been William Byron, Chase Elliott, and Kyle Larson. And now we're giving them a new body. We're taking away some road courses. We're adding more horsepower. I think all of this, everything that we've talked about on this show in general, just benefits Hendrick Motorsports. And, I'm betting Chevy, but realistically, I'm betting Hendrick Motorsports to win the championship here. I'm just extending it a little bit because the odds were like plus 120 instead of plus 115. So just give me all of Chevy for a little bit, of a discount. So I really like Hendrick Motorsports. I really like William Byron to win a championship. I really like Chevy just in general. And I think, if we just look at the consistency and how good Chase Elliott is, but being consistent, he could steal a championship. So I think that this year is really going to come down to Hendrick Motorsports versus JGR versus Ryan Blaney. So give me Chevy at plus 115 in that situation. Basically, everything we've talked about on the show, I feel like benefits Hendrick Motorsports.
I completely agree with that. And I saw a tweet on Twitter from Ryan Stevens of Win the Race, and he was asking people to rank the drivers 1 through 36 this year, the charter drivers, and I put Chevy, or I put Hendrick Motorsports 1, 2, 4, and 8. For the whole season. Kyle Larson, William Byron, 1, 2, in whatever order. I honestly don't care. I actually kind of like William Byron's consistency a little more if we were talking playoffs, but I mean, he and Kyle Larson are neck and neck. I put Chase Elliott 4th behind Christopher Bell. I love his consistency. Again, one of the most consistent drivers. And Alex Bowman, people forget that he was extremely consistent at the beginning of last year. And it just kind of fell apart in the middle of the season and early in the playoffs. but he has the ability to be incredibly consistent, and maybe this new body will suit him well. So I ranked him 8th. So right there, I already think Hendrick Motorsports is set to have a really strong second half of the season, especially in the playoffs. So I love this championship bet. Chevy winning manufacturer at plus 115 by Stevie. For my second pick here in stage 2, you can only find this bet at Caesars. It's a little bit hard to find. I kind of had to click around on some menu options, but it is there. You need to go to NASCAR Cup Series Championship under Auto, and then you go NASCAR Cup Series Championship, and then you click on Manufacturer, and then you click on Top Ford and Toyota. So it's a little bit of a navigation to get there, but I am taking Ryan Blaney top Ford for the season and Christopher Bell top Toyota for the season, plus 320 at Caesars. And honestly, I think the Blaney part of this is a slam dunk. He was the clear top Ford in speed last year, number 2 in flags overall at playoff tracks last year. There were 17 races last year at this year's playoff tracks, and he was number 2 in speed. Next closest was Joey Logano, who is 9th in flags. So, big gap between him and his teammate, who is the next best Ford at these playoff tracks. I think we're all pretty certain Ryan Blaney is going to make the playoffs, so not worried about that. And then on the Toyota side of things, it was pretty neck and neck between Christopher Bell, Denny Hamlin, Tyler Reddick, and Chase Briscoe for top Toyota honors. But I like Christopher Bell this year. I think for me, he is the clear number 1, simply because there could be a little backslide for Denny Hamlin. Just age is a real thing. We saw Kevin Harvick age out. We saw, Martin Truex Jr. eventually age out. This just happens. And at some point it's going to happen for Denny Hamlin. Maybe it doesn't this year. I'd love for him to have another championship run and do great things. I think we all would. But I think right now Christopher Bell is coming to his prime, and he was the clear second in Toyota in flags at playoff tracks behind Hamlin. So, like I said, I think with the decline of Hamlin and maybe just continued improvement for Christopher Bell, I like that. If we look last year in the last 9 races of the season, Christopher Bell had an average finish of 5.4. And some of that was, if we throw out Phoenix, where he wasn't a championship contender, and, all of JGR's focus where, he was finished 11th there, then it's even better, right? His average finish was closer to like 4.5 or something like that over 8 races. He also ran really well at Darlington in that first playoff race, but had a collision on pit road, which put a hole in his grill. So that kind of screwed his day there. Otherwise, he probably would have been a borderline top 5 car again. So, I mean, Christopher Bell was essentially a top 5 car at every single playoff track last year. And I think he does that again. So what are your thoughts on this little interesting manufacturer parlay?
No, I like it. I think the Blaney side of it is very straightforward. I think he's going to be the top forward. And if anything, if you want to get a little hedgy, maybe go to like a Chris Buescher, because I think Chris Buescher has the potential to be really good in this format. So, but I will say, I do think it's Blaney. As you were talking, I was like looking through the Hard Rock and saw that they had like a group bet where it was Blaney, Elliott, Briscoe, and Logano, and I just happened to throw a little on Blaney in that. So to kind of, because I'm with you, I think Blaney, he's a top 5, if not top 3 car in this format. So I like that. And then Bell, this guy's good everywhere. There's not a bad track for Christopher Bell. He's good everywhere. So I think if I was going to bet a top Toyota, it would be between Bell and Hamlin. And I like the points that you made with Bell over Hamlin. So, I mean, I could get on board with this for sure.
Yeah, and one other thing we actually didn't mention in changes is the Charlotte race is no longer going to be at the Roval. It's going to be on the Oval in the playoffs. And that almost helps Christopher Bell, because that gives him a better chance to win, because we all think SVG or Connor Zilisch is probably going to win that Roval race, right? So, Christopher Bell won the Coke 600 2 years ago after Ross Chastain won it last year. So Charlotte is a good track for Christopher Bell. So I think that actually almost helps him a little bit just by the fact that it changes, even though he's, the second best driver in speed last year on road courses. With Connor Zilisch there and just how far ahead SVG was. I mean, he was comically ahead. I think he was 87th percentile flags, and Christopher Bell was 72nd percentile flags as second place. So 15 percentile points ahead of the field on road courses last year is laughable. I'm just in a whole nother world. So I actually think this change might help Christopher Bell a little bit. But that is it for stage 2. And we're going to drive through stage 3 on to victory lane. And I threw a little wrinkle here, Stevie. I did want to talk about one bet that I actually do like. But first, before we do talk about my victory lane bet, let's talk our picks to win the championship. So these are not bets, right? We might not think the odds are good enough to bet them. These are just the drivers we're picking to win the championship. Who do you got, Stevie?
Yeah, I mean, if this driver was 7-1 anywhere, I'd bet it. But the best I have is 5-1. But hands down, William Byron is my favorite to win the championship this year. You're laughing because you're probably on the same page with me, but I think right when the chase was announced, like this was the format change. The first thing that popped in my mind is William Byron is the driver to beat. Like that is it instantly popped in my head. Kind of like Christopher Bell, he doesn't really have a weak spot. He has the new body. Hendrick is so incredibly good. I think William Byron is going to win his first championship this year. And like I said, if I could get this to 7-1 anywhere, I would take it as soon as the chase kind of got announced. But the best I see it, for me here in Florida is 5-1. So I didn't bet this, but I kind of hedged it with my Chevy bet. But I think William Byron is my by far favorite to win the championship this year. And I probably should bet it just because of how much I like it, but I'm so value driven when it comes to betting sometimes that I want to get at least feel like I'm getting some value. I hope he has like a bad first like couple races and then like the odds like kind of shift in my favor. But if I can get Byron 7-1 to win the championship within the first 5 races, I'll probably bet it. So yeah, William Byron is my favorite. But again, I haven't bet it because I don't love the value of the bet right now.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think he is potentially my favorite to win the championship. I'm actually just looking at odds for him, and based off everything I've seen, I've checked 5 of the 6 major books here. I haven't looked at Hard Rock, but I think you said he's 5 there. But William Byron's best odds to win the championship is plus 650 at FanDuel. So I don't. You said 7. I don't know if you could get on board at 6.5. It's pretty close.
So close.
Yeah, but William Byron's my pick to win the championship as well. And Stevie and I did not talk about this ahead of time. We both have picked William Byron. He saw me smile right away. And I talked about the consistency that I love from him relative to Kyle Larson. I have him neck and neck as 1 and 2. So give me William Byron also to win the championship. But I certainly think Christopher Bell makes a strong run at it as well with the way the tracks lay out for him in the playoffs. But, that Chevy body probably puts it a little over the top for me here on William Byron as well. Now, Stevie, I did want to talk real quick about the Daytona 500 because one thing came to mind to me when we were talking about car changes and stuff. The new Chevy body. I think there's value on betting Chevy drivers, or I don't know if certain places have Chevy to win the pole for the Daytona 500, because by the time we record this episode next week, Stevie, they'll have already qualified for the Daytona 500, at least in determining the pole winner, maybe not the duels yet, of course, but the pole winner will already be determined. So I wanted to get this in now, whether it's Chevy to win the pole or a Chevy driver, betting on a lot of the Chevy drivers to win the pole, I think could have value. What if they have something happen like Ford where they just come out blazing on these super speedway tracks? We know Chevy used to be the dominant manufacturer at Daytona 500 qualifying. I mean, Alex Bowman started in the front row like 6 or 7 years in a row. So I was, just one of those things there where Alex Bowman, Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott, all these guys were just starting on the pole or the front row, locking out the front row every single time. We saw Ricky Stenhouse win a pole. We've seen Austin Dillon win a pole. Danica Patrick, I believe, when she was in a Chevy, won the pole. So this used to be Chevy's playground, the Daytona 500 qualifying. If this body does something there, I wouldn't be shocked to see these Chevy drivers win the pole. And I almost love betting every single Chevy driver. But I think the smarter bet is if there's a manufacturer pole bet Chevy to win the pole. But what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it'd be fun to see Alex Bowman contract year. Going to be a lot of conversations about who should be in that car in 2027. Come out and just be like, "Hey, I'm here. I'm not giving my seat up by winning a pole." and we know Hendrick loves winning the pole at Daytona. So, but RCR has a good super speedway package typically. So we could see something like that. We could see Cole Custer with the Alliance have a good qualifying session. So I'm with you. I think like if we do get some odds on just a manufacturer to win the, pole, I think Chevy is a good bet.
Yeah, so nothing official in terms of a bet there for me. I'll probably will track some things in the Action Network app for the pole position. So make sure again you have the Action Pro to get those instant pick alerts if and when I do track a qualifying bet. But yeah, I just thought that was really interesting. I think that's something to think about since we won't have a chance to talk about qualifying on next week's show. But that is going to do it for us. Thanks again for listening to the NASCAR Cup Series preview episode of Running Hot, Action Network's motorsports betting podcast. If you'd like to tell some of the bets we discussed today, look for any quick slip links in the podcast and video description, or go to actionnetwork.com/bet now. We'll be back this time next week to talk bets for the Great American Race. Yes, the Daytona 500. So make sure you get that Action Pro $60 off a year of it discount before the Super Bowl ends, so you can get all those pick alerts for the Daytona 500. Because Stevie and I'm sure we'll be having a ton of Daytona 500 bets. It's one of those chaos races where you find a lot of long shot value. So on behalf of my co-host Stephen Young, thanks again for listening, and we'll see you back here next week on Running Hot from Action Network.